Hello. The Ares 90C. This tank has brought a brand new mechanic into World of Tanks in the form of an autocannon. Unlike traditional autoloaders, it doesn't ever need to reload, but can overheat and need to cool down. Time it right, however, and you'll always have shells ready to go. This video is going to go through everything you need to know about the Ares 90C because this tank can be very hard to play, but also to play against. Starting out with the base stats as we always do, and everything is going to be in red because, well, this was originally upgraded. You have 115 alpha damage with 383 damage per second, which is the first time we've actually seen this. Now, I will say you can mostly ignore what the DPM is and also what the DPS is because, well, it all matters if you overheat the gun or not. And as long as you have a good discipline to not overheat the gun, you will get a lot out of this vehicle. You have 235 penetration on the standard rounds, and the premium rounds being APCR got up to 254, which is not very good for a tier 11. But the thing is, this penetration is good enough for what you're actually meant to be fighting. You're not going to be fighting heavy tanks, and if you are, you go on the side of them or the rear. You don't ever want to fight head on against a heavy tank. That's not what this tank is for. This tank is for eradicating lightly armored tanks, mediumly armored tanks, and then just go around the side of heavily armored ones. The ammunition belt loading time of 6.71 seconds, you can also just flat out ignore because this doesn't actually matter. If you have intuition, which is the #1 perk that I'd recommend for these vehicles, you are just going to have a 2.5 second or thereabouts to switch into any ammo choice, even if you're on cooldown. You have 2,700 DPM. Again, mostly forget about this because it doesn't actually matter, and this is not really realistic of what you will achieve in game. You'll see here that there is two dispersion values, 0.35 and 0.52. The 0.35 is when you're at complete base, no cooldown, and you haven't heated up the gun at all. And the 0.52 is when you're at the very edge and you're just about to go and overheat. So that means that you are getting more inaccurate the longer that you shoot for. Now, does this actually matter in reality? Well, yes, shooting at longer ranges, it does. But up close and personal, and you're just side hugging a tank, not really. And you have a 1.82 second aim time. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the gun because mostly you're probably just going to get overloaded with information. And the best way of me showing you is just in the gameplay later on. This thing has 2,050 hit points base, which is more than good enough to go and fight medium tanks and some heavy tanks that you are going to meet. But remember, side on. You go at 55 km/h forwards, 19 in reverse, and 20 power to weight. More than fast enough as well. You also have a 16% camo rating while stationary and a 12% while on the move with 390 view range. This does mean that you are going to need vents to go and get up to 445 meters, but really it doesn't matter because yeah, you'll just use vents on this thing anyway. But we'll move into the equipment a little bit later on. When we compare between the stock on the left and the upgraded version on the right, you'll see that there is some big upgrades here. Mainly being that you now have 240 pen as standard and the premium goes up to 259. You also get an extra degree of gun depression, now going at -10 degrees. Your dispersion is slightly better, as well as your aim time, and DPM has gone up, but also not really. Like, yes, it is better, but it's also negligible. The hit points have gone up by 100, engine power is slightly increased, and therefore the power to weight has increased, and you get 1 extra kilometer-hour to your top speed. But you do get a lovely nice bit of view range bump up to 400. Now, the ability for this vehicle is just the same as what I've already mentioned about the overheating, and the rest of the line basically has the ability. It's one of these tech trees where the tier 11 doesn't necessarily have an ability, but it is just the best of the ability for the entire line, like the Contriver. And again, the best way of me actually showing you this is in the gameplay later on. Trying to explain it to you in kind of layman's terms doesn't really work. You need to see it to kind of understand it. When you first see the armor layout of this, you might think, Max, that's an insanely strong turret for a tank that can just dish out a load of damage. And you'll be wrong, because this is actually against itself, meaning that you only have 230, 240 pen. Even if I fire premium with 250, you'll see that it's going slightly yellow now. If you compare it to the Hacker's standard rounds, you then have a 50-50 chance to go straight through it. And if they load premium, yeah. However, you do have very good side armor, so that does mean that you can side scrape effectively with this, but you just need to be aware that, yes, the turret is always going to be weak against most tanks that you're going to meet. You can also go ahead and bounce with the upper frontal hull and also the lower plate because these are incredibly well angled. Once you hit the auto ricochet spot, it's very hard for them to do much to you at all. And you can bait this very well. Just be careful not to stick this out because they will pen that and track you. Although this does actually have a track mechanic, meaning that it cannot be tracked frontally. You'll see here that there is a second track, just like with the Yo tanks, that you'll be able to use as a reserve track mechanic, meaning that this main track getting blown off doesn't really do much. You can still reverse, go forwards, turn, and be normal, but just at a very, very slow pace. The sides of these vehicles are around about 70 millimeters thick. The turret side is about 100, and the rear is about 50. So if you do need HE them, there you go. Now, when we're talking about the equipment, there are two different types that you can use. The one that I've been using is experimental turbo, vents, and stab. The stab is really, really important because of the amount of times that you're firing and keeping that bloom level down as much as you can. Now, you could go ahead and ditch out the vents for IRM, which is going to give you even less bloom after firing. However, I've found that the vents just giving you a little bit of buff to everything is a little bit better for me than choosing IRM here. And for your secondary loadout, make sure you do have a scouting build, because then you can have CVS, optics, and stab, and you have the best of both worlds, being able to spot people and also shoot people. Now, I want to spend a little bit of time explaining the ammunition choice on this vehicle. You'll notice that I'm barely using premium rounds at all. This is because the effective pen difference between the two is really not that much, and in some cases, it's actually better to fire the AP than it is with the APCR. Let's take the E50M lower plate, for example. This is against the Ares 90C with the standard rounds at 235 pen. I have chosen the upgrades, but it doesn't seem to be going through. You have a 92% chance at the very top, and at the very bottom, about 78. If we then go to APCR, you'll see that it is a 92% chance at the top and a 74 to 75% chance at the very bottom, but I have more pen. And the reason for this is because normalization is better on AP than it is on APCR, and the difference between the pen is so little that you actually see this in game. When I have spoken in the past about AP being better than APCR, and heat for that matter, then usually it doesn't matter because the pen difference is so large that you'll never ever see it in game. But this is actually one of the rare occasions where the AP round is better than the APCR, even though it has more pen. It doesn't matter what the E50 does, the AP will always be better against a lower plate than it would be with the APCR. Right here at the very top left, 40% chance. If I use APCR, 31% chance. However, this doesn't mean that when it is a completely flat surface that the AP is better, because raw pen is going to be better in this scenario. Such as the front turret here on the E50. This is a 10 to 11% chance for AP, but then I have a 31% chance with APCR. So it's not always that the AP is better, and in some cases, the APCR is better, especially on very, very flat surfaces. But if it is angled, then really the AP is going to be just as good as the APCR, if not better in some circumstances. The lower plate of a mouse, for example, is not super sloped, but it is very, very strong. Meaning that if I'm facing it head on in an Ares 90C, I would need APCR to really go through this a little bit more reliably. Although, yeah, you're still having like a 35% chance. But it's better than the 15 to 18% chance that you have on the AP. But if you're side on like this against AP, you'll see that the turret is like a 50-50. This bit is absolutely fine, but the turret is a lot stronger. Whereas if we use then the APCR, this is a lot easier to pen now. So if you meet the side of a mouse and you need to shoot the turret, then APCR. But realistically, you should just be able to go through this bit every single time. This is a much bigger target. And with AP, it's exactly the same % chance. And for the price difference, where it's 300 credits for the standard round and then 1,800 for the premium round, it just seems like a waste of credits most of the time, because 90% of what you are shooting at, if you are shooting APCR, the AP would probably pen. The HE on this vehicle is very, very interesting because it is not normal HE. This is the same as what a Tessac gets, which is why it's blue. This will completely ignore effective penetration. Do not bother thinking to yourself, I'm never going to pen something, it only has 10 pen, and everything else has 50 or 100 millimeters of effective pen needed. It doesn't matter. This works in the same way as the old HE mechanic did. It will always do damage as long as it's hitting the target armor, not the gun, not the tracks, not spaced armor, because then it will do no damage. But if it's actually hitting the armor of a target, it will do some damage, even if it's like 10 or 20. What you really need to know about the HE is the armor thickness that you are shooting. If you are shooting a plate which is very, very thin, then you will do a lot of damage. If you're shooting a plate that's very, very thick, you won't do a lot of damage. And because of the way HE is, it won't ricochet, it won't care about overmatches, it doesn't care about the angle you're shooting at it either. This means that if you see an STRV, for example, you'll do a lot of damage to them, even though that they're very, very well angled. And most normal HE wouldn't really do anything. But with these, they don't care about the angle, and they just hit the plate because it's very, very thin, and it'll do a load of damage. I'm talking like you could do 1.6k in a clip to an STRV if you hit the correct plates. And this also goes for engine decks on vehicles, upper hulls or the top of hulls, and you'll do a lot of damage because the plates are very, very thin there. So the HE is just very, very different from what we are used to. You have to kind of dislodge the idea of effective penetration and know what the armor plate thickness is. Now, when it comes to the crew skills, this is a little bit more complicated because there's some stuff in here which doesn't really affect the overheating or the DPM of the vehicle. Obviously, you want brothers in arms, repairs, and concealment because this is a medium tank. It has good enough concealment, and getting around the map without getting spotted is actually quite important. You then want recon, and then it's down to you what you choose here. Emergency won't really do anything because it doesn't affect the cooldown period of the gun. However, it will increase the accuracy and the rest of the stats of the tanks, such as the camo and view range, etc. But I don't feel like emergency is really that useful on these tanks. I think it would be much better to go with mentor, practicality, and then coordination, rather than choosing emergency and then yeah, you just don't really get much in return. So for me personally, mentor and then coordination will be the best. For the bonus perks, situational awareness, firefighting, and then signal interception. For the gunner, which is also the loader, we obviously have the top three. Now, I don't really care about snapshot because the stability is already very, very good, and we're using stab. This doesn't really add much for me. However, having armorer, deadeye, and designated target are lovely. Now, Deadeye does work with autocannons. Ignore the description. Wargaming's already confirmed that they need to update it. The autocannons that they are speaking about in this description are stuff like the Panzer 1C, where it's got a very, very rapid fire little cannon. But this means that you're just going to do a lot of crits with the amount of shells that you're actually putting in. And then you combine that with designated target to be able to see what you're hitting, and you can very, very quickly find out if you can set someone on fire if they're a damaged fuel tank. For the bonus perks, intuition, ammo tuning, and perfect charge. We don't use safe stowage because it's very, very rare that you actually get ammo racked. And if you do get ammo racked, there isn't really a negative. It doesn't reduce the reload time because you don't have one, and the cooldown period is no less different. And then finally, for the driver, top three, off-road driving, engineering, and controlled impact. Again, we already have very, very good dispersion on the move, and we're using stab. We don't need smooth ride. Bouncing quite a bit. Hello, Archers. I mean, what is this for? I can't pen you, man. Mr. Mouse doesn't even want to move either. I wonder if the FV is going to move. I'd very, very, very much like to HE this. This could be quite greedy, but... Oh, it's worth it, okay? It's worth it. I killed him before I overheated, but I thought I needed another shot. It's worth it. It's worth it. Now we wait. Wonderful. I think we just keep pushing into this. I don't think we can really do much against the heavies. Well, I mean, I know I can't do much against the heavies. We could go and absolutely obliterate the SDRV. Reload the HE. That wasn't quite what I thought. There we go. Man, I need to really control this overheating better. Much, much better. Okay. Not bad. I mean, the correct play is just a cap, man. Which kind of sucks. Oh. Can I pen his lower plate? I can. There could be a lot more damage in this game, but we are going to lose to them capping us. Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, we could go down and we could get a load more damage, but we will lose because they will cap out and we will not defend the base. Win is win. As much as I'd love to do damage, We will lose. 6.6k, 1 kill, apply. Ho! Hello! So lucky. I hope you get eradicated when you peek this. Go on. I might even make it my mission to just not let him peek. Alright, update. I don't think I can hit him. Even if I sit there and aim and aim and aim, I don't think I'm going to hit this. How thick is an E4 cupola? I mean, he could go up there. I don't think I spot him. I could have actually tracked him there and perma-tracked him with the rear. What's not spotted yet? A Conway, a Char, and the RT. So pretty much everything has been spotted at the moment. We are in trouble. And by we, I just mean me. Run away. Bit less trouble now. Bit less trouble. Well, he's burning. He's burning badly. Oh, hello, little Char. Man, this thing literally just... It racks up damage so quickly. Like, one moment you don't have any damage, the next moment... 5k. It's unbelievable how fast you can get damage in this. Oh, 6k, nearly 2k assistance. Apply. No one pushing up. Rare. Rare, rare, rare. Wait, what are these doing? Okay. Apparently dying. Do you reckon this guy pushes back? I don't think he does. In fact, because this is an STB, I should probably fire HG on the side armor. I think we can do more damage. When it gets to about here, I can then shoot. Go on. Come on. Go back, STB. Oh. It was okay. We got basically the same alpha as a normal clip though, so it wasn't better to do that. He's so low. Right, we can go back. Dude, the gonk is still here. I could just HE this actually. I just need one hit. That's a bit more of a problem. That one, problem. I can only really pen his cupola. Now, I don't know if the FE has come down off of the hill, but I could go and like side hug the Type 5, which I'm debating doing. And bang, just like that, Type 5 is gone. FE, oh, the FE's only on 500. Cannot do the funny with a 1.6k clip, unfortunately. Although, I mean... Look at that! All of them gone. Didn't quite get the Conway though. No, just don't peek. Just don't peek. A little bit more damage at the end. That is not bad. 7.6, first class only. Apply. So the final thoughts on the Ares 90C. Is this thing absolutely OP and broken? I don't know. The thing is that when these tanks first get introduced, whenever a new tank gets introduced, the tank is either outright OP or underpowered. There never seems to be a middle ground where people go, yeah, it's just fine. And I feel like this is the same kind of situation that we have when autoloaders first came into game, auto-reloaders first came into the game, where they're just so different from what we have now that people don't really know how to feel about it. And it's easier to go to one extreme or the other rather than actually just taking time and seeing how it performs after a while. And I think that that is what we're going to have to do to really see how good or bad these are for the game, especially at the moment when there's loads of them in the game and it's very easy to say that it is so toxic for the game, but after a month or two there's probably going to be a lot less. So only time will tell regarding if this tank is outright broken or OP. However, I do enjoy it and I do think that it is pretty fun. It takes a little bit more skill to actually fully understand how to use it, and it's very, very situational as well. I don't necessarily feel that it's very good that I can snipe someone across the map with one of these things, but then again, we'll just see how it goes over time. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later.